9 primary images confirming Francis Bacon is Shakespeare. The second anonymous Rosicrucian manifesto appeared in Latin at Kassel in 1615, entitled the Confessio Fraternitatis, written across 14 chapters. The second Rosicrucian manifesto contains a piece of devastating information. Its secret anonymous author, Bacon, points out how easily the so-called learned or learned fools and the rest of the credulous world are easily deceived with enigmas and illusions. One of them being of his own creation, which had misled and beguiled the sleepy universities and academia around the globe for centuries. Our age doth produce many such, one of the greatest being a stage player, a man with sufficient ingenuity for imposition. In 1616, the year in which Bacon's literary mask William Shakespeare died, there was published at Amsterdam a very rare Rosicrucian work by Plempe. The enigmatic work contains 50 illustrations with Latin verses beneath them. Emblem 1 sees Fortune standing upon a globe, an allusion to the Globe Theatre, with one hand pushing from the pinnacle of fame a man dressed as an actor with a feather in his hat, and the other raising up a man wearing the familiar Bacon hat. In nearly all portraits, he is represented wearing the hat of the Grand Master of the Rosicrucian Freemasonry Brotherhood, whose face is hidden. Confirmation it is Bacon comes in the form of the initial letters from the 9th line in the verse, which spell out F. Bacon. A work closely connected to the Plempe edition was set forth by Bacon and his Rosicrucian Brotherhood in 1618. On the frontispiece it will be noticed that on either side of the temple of the Rosy Cross are 2 figures, one wearing a tall hat with a large rose being hauled out of a dark well where he was previously hidden, and another figure falling off a high rock. These 2 figures represent the same 2 figures in the Plempe emblem, where the identity of Francis Bacon is confirmed by the anagram in its verse, where the other, dressed as an actor, represents the literary impostor William Shakespeare, alluded to in the second Rosicrucian manifesto, Confessio Fraternitatis. Shortly after the Shakespeare First Folio was published an extremely rare work on cryptology by Gustavus Solenus in 1624. The revealing title page of this rare work confirms Francis Bacon's secret authorship of the Shakespeare works. The title page contains a pictorial cryptogram in 4 pictures, which surround the central square of bibliographical information pertaining to its title and author and date of publication. It depicts Francis Bacon giving a figure holding a spear dressed in actor's boots, representing the actor William Shakespeare. In the middle distance, the spearman Shakespeare, still holding his spear on his back, is shown carrying quartos or books of plays given to him by Bacon on horseback, travelling towards the Globe Theatre in the distance. The Shakespeare First Folio and De Augmentis, published within weeks of each other in the late 1623, and the Cryptomentices, published shortly after in early 1624, all derive from the same source. This was all again wonderfully encapsulated in the little-known title page of a later edition of Bacon's De Augmentis, published in Holland in 1645. The engraving represents the Mountain of Parnassus, the mythical home to Apollo, god of poetry, and the Muses, the goddesses of poetry and drama, with winding steps leading up to a Freemasonic temple. In this title page, the figure representing Bacon on the title page of the Cryptomentices is here again seated in front of a large folio, his Shakespeare First Folio, with his left hand controlling his literary mask William Shakespeare, clad in an actor's goatskin, holding a clasped book like the old Masonic rituals, representing his Freemasonry Brotherhood, who to the present day closely guard and watch over Bacon's secret life and writings, including his concealed authorship of the Shakespeare works. In the address to the reader opposite the Droeshout engraving prefixed to the Shakespeare First Folio, Ben Jonson, who had a love of anagrams, instructs the reader to hit on his face or his true identity, which he reveals by communicating a secret message to posterity by spelling out down the left-hand side his name, F. Bacon. As we have seen with his Rosicrucian Freemasonic Grandmaster Francis Bacon, Rare Ben had a love of anagrams, and he secretly incorporated another one in the last 6 lines of his verse, to the memory of my beloved, the author Mr. William Shakespeare, communicating a secret message to posterity regarding the true identity of our immortal poet Shakespeare, by spelling out again down the left-hand side his name, Bacon. In 1867, an astounding Elizabethan manuscript from around 1596 was discovered at Northumberland House in London. It should be one of the most famous manuscripts in the world, but because it belonged to Francis Bacon and there were numerous mentions of both Bacon and Shakespeare, it was largely ignored by the wider world. Bacon's editor, James Spedding, mentioned it in a rather casual and brief way, but it was not until 1904 when Frank J. Burgoyne, chief librarian at Lambeth and a Baconian, gave the manuscripts their proper place and context, supported by Sir Edwin Durning Lawrence, another prominent Baconian. In addition to originally having held 2 of Bacon's Shakespeare plays, Richard II and Richard III, the outer cover of his collection of manuscripts contains references and links to his narrative Shakespeare poem The Rape of Lucrece and another 3 of his Shakespeare plays, Love's Labour's Lost, Romeo and Juliet and The Merchant of Venice. This is the only manuscript where the names Bacon and Shakespeare appear together in a contemporary document, and there are various forms of his name, Bacon and Francis Bacon, and his pseudonym Shakespeare and William Shakespeare, scribbled across its outer cover on around 20 occasions. As a young boy, Francis Bacon took the Greek goddess Pallas Athena for his inspiration and muse. She was the goddess of knowledge and wisdom, and is depicted with an owl and a shield, shaking her spear at the serpent of ignorance. She was Bacon's muse, hence his pseudonym Shakespeare. Bacon was often closely associated with his muse Pallas Athena. She appears on several of his acknowledged works, including the frontispiece of Bacon's Wisdom of the Ancients, that depicts her with mottos above her head and on her shield, stating, "Truth is enveloped by obscurity, and thus it shines in the shadows." These images emphatically confirm Francis Bacon is Shakespeare.